Hi, I'm Rev Myron. I'm a minister through Pathways of Light, and I've been a Course in Miracles student for 40 years. And this year, I'm reading the lessons and asking Jesus to clarify for me. And then I'm writing what comes into my mind, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. So let's get started. Today, we're looking at lesson 47. God is the strength in which I trust. Paragraph 1, if you're trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and afraid. What can you predict or control? What is here in you that can be counted on? What would give you the ability to be aware of all the facets of any problem and to resolve them in such a way that only good can come of it? What is there in you that gives you the recognition of the right solution and the guarantee that it will be accomplished? Paragraph 2, of yourself, you can do none of these things. To believe that you can is to put your trust where trust is unwarranted and to justify fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. Who can put his faith in weakness and feel safe? Yet who can put his faith in strength and feel weak? When we are directing our questions to the ego mind, we are misplacing our trust. The ego is not interested in our happiness and cannot give us anything that is true or that is a real solution. The ego always leads us into fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. If I experience any of these effects, I know that I have turned to the ego for guidance, and so I change my mind. Paragraph 3, God is your safety in every circumstance. His voice speaks for him in all situations and in every aspect of all situations, telling you exactly what to do to call upon his strength and his protection. There are no exceptions because God has no exceptions, and the voice which speaks for him thinks as he does. The point of this lesson is to help us switch our allegiance from the ego to the Holy Spirit and to assure us that he will respond to our call. Here's an example of how I went from listening to ego to listening to the Holy Spirit instead. My mom died of Alzheimer's disease, as did her sister. Her mother also had some form of dementia. I was really afraid of that happening to me. Watching its devastating effects up close as it ravaged my mom's mind made my fear worse. I was asking the ego how to see this situation, and it brought fear and anxiety. It felt hopeless to me, but I scoured the internet for ways to avoid it. I even thought about suicide if I started noticing signs. The more I did these things, the worse the fear became. This is how the ego helps when we use that thought system to guide our thoughts and actions. Eventually, I realized what I was doing, and I pulled myself out of that kind of thinking. I began looking at each dark thought with the Holy Spirit, asking for the miracle to undo these thoughts. It took a while, but trusting in the strength of God, I was able to let go of my fear-driven thoughts. The truth began to come back into my mind as I followed the logic of the Course. There is no world. This is the central thought the Course attempts to teach. Since there is no world outside our minds, there are no bodies. And he tells us, at no single instant does a body exist at all. Since the body does not exist, I cannot be in the body. And he tells us, the Christ in you inhabits not a body, yet he is in you, and thus it must be that you are not within a body. This means that I am eternally safe in the mind of God, I no longer worry about the possibility of Alzheimer's. If this is the way the story of Myron goes, then it does. If I continue to choose the Holy Spirit consistently, my dream will be a happy one, no matter what happens. Paragraph 4. Today, we will try to reach past your own weakness to the source of real strength. 4 5-minute practice periods are necessary today, and longer and more frequent ones are urged. Close your eyes and begin, as usual, by repeating the idea for the day. Then spend a minute or two in searching for situations in your life which you have invested with fear, dismissing each one by telling yourself, God is a strength in which I trust. When I first did these lessons, I felt an enormous sense of relief when I would say that God is a strength in which I trust. But it would be a while before I understood the power of this belief. First, I had to break the habit of trusting ego solutions. Secondly, I had to lean into the strength of God many times before I learned to trust it. Sometimes it seemed not to work and I would become discouraged. But eventually I came to realize that God always works. It is my mind that was variable. This can be frustrating, but consistent practice makes it easier. Paragraph 5. Now try to slip past all concerns related to your own sense of inadequacy. It is obvious that any situation that causes you concern is associated with feelings of inadequacy, for otherwise you would believe that you could deal with the situation successfully. It is not by trusting yourself that you will gain confidence, but the strength of God in you is successful in all things. Paragraph 6. The recognition of your own frailty is a necessary step in the correction of your errors, but it's hardly a sufficient one in giving you the confidence that you need and to which you are entitled. You must also gain an awareness that confidence in your real strength is fully justified in every respect and in all circumstances. I never think that I, as my ego, is sufficient to solve all problems or any problems, really. It's a hard habit to break, though, and sometimes I fall back into it to my regret. But I just shrug it off and return to trusting God. One of the problems I can encounter is the confusion that comes with wanting a particular outcome. The truth is, I don't know what outcome is best. How could I? I don't have enough information to make that determination. So when I feel confused about what is the voice for God and what is the ego voice in my head, I pause. I let myself trust the outcome to the Holy Spirit, and then the next step becomes clear. This is a sentence that stands out to me in this lesson. You must also gain an awareness that confidence in your real strength is fully justified in every respect and in all circumstances. It is those words, in every respect and in all circumstances, that grabs my attention. I try never to keep some part of my life separate from God to deal with on my own. Watching my mind for that kind of thinking slows me. That kind of thinking helps me to quickly choose again. I have learned to trust in the strength of God through this practice. Paragraph 7. In the latter phase of the practice period, try to reach down into your mind to a place of real safety. You will recognize that you have reached it if you feel a sense of deep peace, however briefly. Let go all the trivial things that churn and bubble to the surface of your mind and reach down and below them to the kingdom of heaven. There's a place in you where there is perfect peace. There's a place in you where nothing is impossible. There is a place in you where the strength of God abides. Sometimes I have problems with these meditations. My undisciplined mind doesn't want to stop thinking, but this is one that I can fall into easily. I can do this in minutes when I pause to allow it. There is a place in me where there is perfect peace. I know because I dwell there more and more often. That there is a place in me where where nothing is impossible is becoming true for me. It does so as I practice choosing the strength of God in me. Paragraph 8. During the day, repeat the idea often. Use it as your answer to any disturbance. Remember that peace is your right because you're giving your trust to the strength of God. I have a problem right now, a time issue. And I have absolutely no idea what to do about it. Thinking about it, I start to feel tension in my body and I have to laugh. This is just the ego mind searching frantically for the solution and not finding it. I let it go and just do the next thing. And somehow it all works out. The only time there's a problem is when I let my mind start to wander into future thinking, but I don't stay there. I trust in the strength of God to solve this problem as well. Thank you so much for sharing this lesson with me. Thanks for watching my video. And if you found it helpful, then please like it. And if you have not done so yet, subscribe. Thank you. And I'll be back tomorrow with another lesson.